Okay, as I've said several times, the state starts with this document. Every single content area, whether it's PPR, the pedagogy, and pedagogy is the science of teaching, like how we best teach students, the exact students that we have in the classroom. For the purposes of the exam, it's going to be the exact students that you have in the scenario. So if they say, let me bring this up really quickly. If they say an age group, grade level, special population, and remember, special pops can be special ed, they can be gifted and talented, socioeconomic disadvantage, 504, so SPED, English language learners, gifted and talented, I said that already, 504. Are there parents getting divorced? Did a family member just die? So standard one in your document that comes from the state is about you designing instruction that is appropriate for all students. And what all means is in the scenario and for the purposes of real life in your classroom, what grade are you teaching? I just was talking to a math teacher who was having difficulties. He's an intern. He came in mid-year. He was having difficulties with classroom management. Even for a veteran teacher, it is difficult to come into a classroom mid-year. There's a magic that goes on in the beginning of the year where teacher and student come to a consensus and they build a classroom culture. If mid-year that is broken, somebody comes in and it can be done to do it. Obviously, it's not impossible, but it's so much harder. And if you are a first-year intern, it seems like an impossible, daunting task because you don't have the tools necessary, equipped to negate those sort of things that are already in place. So he's going to be a fourth grade teacher this year, and we're discussing his plan of attack for the beginning of the year next year so that he can create a classroom environment, which is standard 2, by the way, of respect and rapport that fosters, positive learning, equity, and excellence. So that's where he had a little bit of difficulties. It's not in his abilities to instruct, but some of the lack of procedures, and procedures are not for all of us. Like, I'll give you an example. I always taught 7th through 12th grade. That's like, I never taught anything else, 7th through 12th grade for 16 years. So I never had to do silly little things to get people's attention. I just had to stare at you with the mom stare and then you would get quiet. Let's just do this chilling silence and then you're quiet. But that's not the way it is in elementary. You can't just give them a chilling dead stare and they're quiet. They don't have that, social context just yet, that nuance. So I went in and I saw a math teacher and he did this really, because most of them are super boring, like clap once. And it's like, if you listen to me clap twice, that's super boring. I hate it when they make me do it and I'm at a teacher session. So this one was cooler. His name was Mr. Ramirez. And so if they got too loud, he was like, Mr. Ramirez, tire check. And all the kids would look up and go, shh. All the way down to 0. This was 4th grade. Now, granted, this would not work with my 11th graders, my 12th graders. They would have been like, are you kidding me right now, Miss Sauceda? But it works with 4th graders. Understanding the age group of your student helps you plan not only their instructional environment, but the actual instruction best for them. Knowing what their emotional, socio-emotional, and maturity level is important to the creation of your classroom instruction, right? What you choose to do with them, the things that you have in place to sort of bring back attention, because not all grades have a super duper attention span. Kinder and first and pre-K, or I would say kinder and pre-K, they sort of have the attention spans of gnats. And because of that, like biological fact, teachers have to plan in a particular way. We have to plan for NATs. And so you have you do different sessions and different stations. Like this station is for this doing, which is only this long because your brain is focused this long, where you are biologically. And as they grow into middle age, that has a different set of skills that they gain and a different set of setbacks within their whole anatomy, physiology. So too for the later ages. So EC through 12, understanding the theoretical background, that theoretical framework that goes into the decisions that we make is very, very important. And when they ask you on the exam, they're not going to say, oh, make the best decision for these fourth graders who are on Piaget's level of this cognitive reasoning. They're not going to say any of that. They're just going to say Miss Sauceda's fourth grade class is, attempting more critical thinking. And she has a diverse population of students with a handful of special ed and ELL. Those mention of special population, any difference, any differentiation from just Joe Blow basic student. So any detail that they give you, age, grade, special population, whether it's their ability, it might even be their learning preference. They might even said, oh, they're tactile learners or they're audio visual learners. If they say that, they said it because it's important. The test makers do not get anything except for this document. And they make an exam and they use particular words within their scenarios, within their questions, within even their answers. And that's how they that's how they make this exam so incredibly difficult. Teaching is difficult anyway. We're dealing with human beings. These aren't robots or machines that behave exactly in the same way. Not even every day. Even if it's the same person, they don't react every day. It's a very, very sort of nuanced, specific, scientific, focused job. So too, the exam is going to be a little bit like that. And then the way that they try to reflect it to be like the difficulty that teaching is in real life is by within the scenarios, in the words, because this is a critical reading exam, meaning the words that they chose them specifically to use those words for a reason. And so they give you the words and the hints to let you know what answer choice is better than the other. And paying attention to the clues that they give you in the scenarios, in the question, is very important. What, first and foremost, what is the goal for the teacher in the scenario? What is it? Is it to increase oral language? Is it to increase critical thinking? Or to increase cross-curricular activities? What are they asking? What's the goal of the teacher? What is she trying to do in the scenario? Next, and this is very important because we were just talking about keywords and phrases do you have to pay special attention to? Make sure your keywords are satisfied. What I mean by satisfied, it means addressed. Like if they say Miss Sauceda wants to increase oral language proficiency of her students, and in the answer choices, they tell you Miss Sauceda, she assigns a at-home research paper to increase their knowledge on things talked about tomorrow. She has the students like jot down questions to interview other people. She has the students think, pair, share with their partner. The only one that talks that is doing something oral is the think, pair, share. So they will all, it will, your answer choices, or excuse me, your keywords and phrases that you identify in the scenario as important, you need to pay attention to. They're going to be a deciding factor as to the right answer, because the other ones will be wrong because they don't address or satisfy the keywords and phrases that you identified. So satisfy or address. Never, never, never just say, oh, for sure B's wrong. For sure B's wrong. If you do that, you're going to get it wrong. It happens every time I'm studying with someone and we're going through the practice questions and, you know, the answer is B and I know it already. And they're like, oh, for sure B is not the answer. For sure B is not the answer. But they don't ever say why, but they just like cross it out right away, right after we finish reading the scenario. And I'm thinking, no, you have to go through a whole shebang to cross out an answer. You have to say, does it address my keywords and phrases? If not, then it's not the right. I can bet myself $5 because it's not looking for oral proficiency, because it doesn't address the particular age group. It's too high for them or it's too low for them. So making sure that you pay attention to the key words and phrases that are within that scenario, because they're going to be there and they're going to be the deciding factor between the good answers and the bad answers. So again, don't dismiss an answer choice one off. You have to be able to bet yourself $5, be able to bet yourself $5 hairs that it's not the right answer. You want to be able to bet yourself $5 hairs that it's not the right answer. Okay. Don't eliminate the right answer without giving it its due process. Because what happens, and what always happens during practice, they're like, oh, for sure B is not the answer. Then they spend the next 2 or 3 minutes wasting time to decipher between 3 answers that they have 0% chance getting right. 3 answer choices. So no matter how much thought you put into the remainder, if you sort of diminish one right away, it might be the right answer. So I'm going to save this here. I'm going to save our little, it's going to do a screenshot of the page and I'll send this to you guys. If you could just email me and I'll send you this one that has it like typed out for you like this. So number 1 is about you designing. It's all about your plan, the design of instruction. Remember, for all, which means this and more. We'll go look at the more in a little bit. And you have to understand your relevant content knowledge, but most importantly, it's based on continuous and appropriate assessment. We don't just assess. I know it felt that way in school, that we just took tests in order to get grades and we put on this like hierarchy of like best to not so great, but that's actually not the point of assessments. Our job is to continuously and appropriately assess, informally and formally, mostly informally though, like the bulk of what we get and we use is informal collection of data. That's all assessment is. Assessment is a collection of data. Where are your students on this lesson for this one day? So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a lesson about an author's use of diction. And this is useful for us. So diction is an author's specific word choice. It is their specific choice of words in order to elicit a certain something. And in English, I analyze diction, particular word choice in a poem, in a piece of prose, to ascertain the author's tone or attitude towards a particular subject. So, so too are you looking at the diction. What specific words are they using in the scenario? What age group? What is the teacher looking for? When does it happen? Does it happen during, before, or after you begin the lesson? Because that's important. Those time markers first, like, oh, for the teacher to do this first, what would be next for her to do? So before, during, and after, we have strategies that we use, particularly before we begin our lessons, right? We have strategies that we use during, and we have strategies that we use after. When they say before, during, and after in a scenario, it's very important because they'll give you answer choices that are amazing strategies, but that happen after, and we need something that happens during, right? So that amazing one that happens after that you chose is going to be wrong because it doesn't address the keywords and phrases in the scenario. It is a recipe. Make sure your answer choice has all of the parts for that recipe. If they give you more than one thing in the recipe, which they might, they'll tell you, oh, what Miss Sauceda is looking to expand her students' experience with discourse and dialogue, and she wants to increase her use of technology in the classroom. That means whatever you choose has to do two things. It has to increase dialogue and discourse in her class and be something that's technological savvy. So they will exactly tell you what they're looking for. So the answer choice has to be something that does both, that they're talking in some way. It doesn't have to be speech. It could be written discourse, because discourse is dialogue or speech that is written or read. So it could be a blog. A blog would be a perfect recipe that would address those two things. It's online, it's technological, and they have to discuss with each other in this online forum the things that they've read. So making sure that you look for those keywords and phrases before, during, after, those are keywords and phrases too, because they tell you when during the learning activity, during the learning experience, does this take place, or when are they looking for it? Okay, so let's take a look at it in large. Okay, so here you have the full version. And again, your job with standard one, and standard one is the highest tested, right? It has the most percentage that is tested. It's get this out. It's 34% of your entire exam. 34% because it is all of domain one, right? But it also makes a guest star appearance in domain three. Domain three is not just standard three. Domain three is domains 1, 3, and tech apps 1 through 7. So how important is it for you to understand standard one if 33% is 100% of domain one of standard one, and then a third of it, because there's 3 other things in here, a third of it makes up domain 3. It's almost like 40 something percent of your exam. Not almost, it's 40 something percent. I'm not too sure. I want to say that it's like 11%, that each one of these, domain 1 gets 11%, domain 3 gets 11%, and technology apps. But I don't really know on that sort of like division of weight or whatever. And certainly they're not going to tell us because Pearson is very tight-lipped with everything. It's like as if it was the cure for cancer being held a secret. So I don't know what the division is, but let's just say it's 34 plus 11%. That's 45% of the exam. How important is it for you to understand what you need to do in standard one? It's super duper important. And this is about your designing of instruction. And so instruction, again, for all students that has strong content base, but most importantly, that we are checking for understanding. We check for understanding and we assess so that we can better modify, gauge our plan for tomorrow for the students, because the goal is student success. And the assessments are not merely to give them A's and B's and put it into a report card. It is literally to measure like this objective I'm doing today, this objective of the students will understand the importance of diction in an author's work. And diction means the author's particular word choice and how important that is in a piece of work to understanding their thought, their tone, where they're going with this. I need to measure that in my classroom. So if I do a small 15-minute mini instruction, I model for the students the diction. I've already defined it, showed them examples, done guided practice with them. Now I'm putting them into carefully crafted cooperative learning groups. If I do that and I walk around and I'm listening and I hear all of them just picking words, just nonsensically, not words that would be considered diction words, then I know, and I might right then and there say, okay, guys, I'm hearing a lot of confusion out there. Let's take a look at this next poem and we're going to do this one together. So remember, let's review diction. And I would redo the whole shebang based on my informal formative assessment of merely walking around and carefully listening to the group discussions. If they were not achieving mastery together, what I could decipher from their dialogue, then I would need to go back and reteach. I would know that right then and there. I wouldn't have to wait to give a quiz in 2 weeks over diction. By then, they've already lost possibly everything we talked about, and they are coming at us at a point blank. Feedback right then and there. Assessing, of course, giving like summative assessments and checking for understanding at the end of the unit, but so much more on a daily basis. Giving those exit tickets, having those poignant classroom discussions over questions that you've written, particularly for that lesson, particularly to check for understanding. You don't even have to do a group work. You could tell them, okay, guys, everybody has the 2 questions that you need to think about at your desk. I want for you to think about them, respond to them, and then in 7 minutes, we're going to think, pair, share with your partner. And then they discuss what they wrote down and what they understood, their assessment. And that gives them practice with oral language proficiency. It gives them practice talking about the content specific stuff that we want them to be talking about. And it gives them a little bit of courage. And in that they've had practice and feedback, because like, let's say, me and who do we have in here today? Because I can't see. Let's see who's E. Let's see, me and E. We're having a dialogue, and I say, well, the North Pole is super close to Africa, and E's like, I don't know about that. Have you seen the map lately? Like, that's not a map I've ever seen. That feedback before, if they got it wrong in their own assessment, they will have a discussion, change their stuff. Then you can come back to a whole class discussion and say, okay, guys, over the same questions. Now, they've already had 2 times the practice. They thought about it themselves when they responded to it. Then they turned to their partner and said their part. They listened to their partner's part. Then they shared ideas, changed stuff, revisited, edited if need be. And then as a whole class, now I'm going to ask for volunteers, and you will have more students likely to participate if they've already gone through the motion. If I'm like saying this again, I already know I'm right about this, I'm super going to raise my hand. Like, I'm going to raise my hand to talk about it. So it gives them the practice that they need, everybody the practice that they need. Because even if you just went from asking them the question and straight to direct instruction, not everyone would have the practice literally saying those words that are content specific that are needed to answer your questions out loud to someone. They're not all going to respond to you in group discussion. So having a think, pair, share before you move to a group discussion allows you to give the students a chance to practice with that. Okay, guys, we're going to stop here for today. I'm so sorry, but the electrician is still here and I have to let him go. We're going to start back up tomorrow, 6:30, same time, same place. We are going to talk about the theories that correspond with this document.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ms. Sauceda.
Is everyone there? I can't hear y'all.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Sauceda.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Sauceda.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. I'll be back tomorrow, 6:30, and the electrician won't be here, so it'll be the full hour tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you guys, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.